Do you know that the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria just doled out $9 million to a lobby firm in Washington to lobby the Americans and convince the Americans that Christians are not being killed in Nigeria on the basis of their faith, and also to convince American government that the government is doing much about the security situation in the country? Do you know that $9 million amounts to about 13 billion naira? Where is the government of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu spending $9 million to convince Americans about the situation in Nigeria, when it is yet unable to convince Nigerians about how it is confronting these problems that it wants the Americans to believe it is doing well? Well, my name is Rimamnde Shawulu. This is the other side. The news came out last week that the Nigerian government entered into a contract with a U.S. lobbying company valued at up to $9 million to counter narratives, especially in Washington, that frame Nigeria's violence as Christian genocide. The engagement was filed under the United States Foreign Agents Registration Act, which makes it mandatory for such contracts to be registered. Had the United States Congress not made laws to the effect that those things will have to be filed, Nigerians would have not known that the contract, which is structured for $4.5 million for an initial 5 months with an automatic renewal that will bring the total value of the contract to $9 million, had been signed. At the prevailing dollar rate, the deal is worth between 13.2 billion. Well, the focus of the lobby is supposed to be on narrative management and policy advocacy that will convince the United States that everything is going on well in the country, and that those who are saying that Christians and Christian communities have been attacked and Christians have been killed are not telling the truth. But what is actually the situation? The firm, that is DCI Group AZLSC, a Washington-based lobbying and strategic communication firm, and its Nigerian counterpart is Astralega Nigeria. And the client of this company is the government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, acting through the Office of the National Security Advisor. Well, like I said before, under the prevailing laws in the United States, these disclosures are necessary: the client identity, the contract value, the scope of work, and the payment schedule. Because of this rigorous requirement by the law, these papers were filed, and today we know that the government has entered into a contract to that effect. According to the filed scope of work, the company is tasked with engaging U.S. policymakers, influencers, and institutions to provide briefings and written materials to emphasize Nigerian government actions to protect Christian communities, combat jihadist groups Boko Haram, ISWAP, and maintain U.S. security and diplomatic support, and to counter claims framing Nigeria's violence as state-sanctioned or religiously targeted genocide. To be clear, $9 million in the current situation of Nigeria is a very big amount of money. The official exchange rate of the dollar is today $1 to 1,419 naira. However, what is clear is that over the last 20 years, there have been massive destruction of Christian communities, of Christian churches, burning of homes, displacement of persons, killings, and abductions. And the hotspots have been Plateau, Benue, Southern Kaduna, Nasarawa, parts of Borno, Adamawa, Niger, and Taraba states. What is not clear is that the government has not done any research. The government has not provided any statistics to show that these communities have not been targeted because they are Christian communities. To be clear, we have had community leaders and churches come out to complain that those people who go to attack them in their homes and in their churches, when they go to those communities, they burn down churches, they shout Allah Akbar, which is a Muslim sign of war as far as the context in Nigeria is concerned. And we have had video tapes of press statements like the one in Plateau State, where a leader of a Fulani group at a press conference publicly stated that until the people of Plateau State accept to have a Muslim as a deputy governor, there will continue to be killings in Plateau State. And in some of the communities where there are even Muslims, minority Muslim communities, the mosques in those environments are not destroyed. Of course, it is very clear that the government in the United States has taken note of the religious context of the conflicts in Nigeria, which is why in the report of the United States Commission on International Religious Freedom, Nigeria was recommended for designation as a country of particular interest. And this took place and led to the heightened activities of American Congress and congressmen who have visited Nigeria, and some of them have come out to see for themselves, and they have testified that they have seen conditions that are actually very bad. And of course, it is interesting that while the Nigerian government is denying that there is no religious implication in the attacks on Christian communities, Al-Qaeda admitted in one post did on its official website 2 months ago that it is responsible for some of the attacks on Christian communities, and said it will continue to attack Christian communities until Nigeria becomes an Islamic state. So the question you ask, why is the government complaining about Al-Qaeda and ISWAP and denying what ISWAP and co are saying that they are doing? Why is the government saying that the problem is not religion? ISWAP and Al-Qaeda in the Sahel is saying that they are attacking these communities because they are Christian communities and they want them to become Muslim communities. Well, it's very clear that there is something wrong with the government action. To be clear, just as the government is lobbying the international community to believe that there is no Christian genocide in Nigeria, the organizations that have been tracking killings of Christians or people who profess to be Christians around the world have issued a statement. The report says that Nigeria accounts for 72% of Christian killings worldwide. Of the 4,849 Christians killed for their faith worldwide, 1,490 were killed in Nigeria, according to Open Doors 2026. According to the report, most Christians were killed in Nigeria last year than anywhere else in the world combined. And so the denial of the government has not changed the narrative around the world, and it is very unlikely that it's going to change. But what if the government has spent just a quarter of that money to establish a committee of credible people of all faiths, people, Muslims, Christians, animists, and people of all faiths with foreign participation, to go around the country and verify these allegations and documentations that Christian groups and Christian leaders have been making, that Christians have been killed in Nigeria for their faith? Rather than do that, government wants to go and deny. There is nowhere in the world today that is a closed society. Everything in every part of the world is open for people to see. It's very difficult to hide some things, which is why even people who work in the intelligence field know that 60% of all intelligence in the world today, according to some statistics and some school of thought, is open source. That means that people find out, people know what is happening. And I think that the best thing that the government would have done would have been to simply go ahead to establish a credible committee to bring the people who are complaining, the people who are denying, to sit down, go around and do the investigation and have statistics. And if government had done that, for instance, it would have done a lot of good to provide the government with data that is credible. Today, apart from the political propaganda that there is no genocide, government has nothing to back. Some of these organizations have names of people attached to every number of people killed that they have. It may interest you to note, and if you go to ask, you may discover that this organization has the names of the people that were killed, where they were killed, the locations where they were killed, and the circumstances that they were killed. And it would be ridiculous for government to go back to those people and tell them that what they know is not true. The second thing is also on this line is that I'm surprised that even the National Assembly, which should have done what is needful when allegations of such magnitude are raised, to open up public inquiry and investigations and hearing on the allegations of killing of Christians. Rather than do that, several individuals and leaders of the National Assembly, some have reportedly gone to the United States, approaching members of Congress and people in State Department, trying to deny that these allegations are true. But they are not going there with facts. They are going there with nothing. They don't have information. When, of course, they would have simply done a motion and provided funding for public hearing for either a joint committee of the Senate and the House or some select committees of the House would have been empowered, and they would have gone to investigate and receive testimonies and receive memoranda from people that are affected and verify whether the allegations that have been made are true or not. The government has not done that. The implication of government, of National Assembly and the presidency not doing that is that both the National Assembly and the presidency are complicit and they want to deny their complicity. If it's not that they want to deny their complicity, where are they not investigating publicly these allegations that Christians have been killed on the basis of their faith? Another strange thing, of course, for me is that 13 billion that has been used to go and tell Americans tales by the moonlight, tales which Americans would not believe, no matter the numbers of Christian leaders or compromised Christians who go to the United States to go and appear before members of the Congress or officials of the State Department or officials of the White House to speak. If you had used this money, you would have been able to resettle at least 92,000 displaced households. If you were going to give, for instance, an average of 138,000 naira per household, you would have been able to settle 92,000 displaced households and or 450,000 to 500,000 people. This would have made more sense. But so far, the government has not done anything to resettle these communities. The government has not rebuilt houses. The government has not provided anything that the people that have been displaced will use. And the government is spending so much money, 13 billion naira, to tell the Americans tales by the moonlight. What is your take about what the government is doing? Will the Americans change their minds because some lobby groups have been empowered by the government to go and tell them that what their security agencies and what their NGOs in Nigeria have found to be true are false? Well, we'll yet see what is going to happen. And the question to ask, does the government actually know the number of people killed or displaced? Why is the government denying what it has not yet verified? Why will the National Assembly not investigate, not open public hearing? Rather, the National Assembly has said they will send people or have already sent people to the United States to go and deny what congressmen from United States have come to Nigeria and confirmed. This is a question that only people in government in Nigeria can answer. But the important thing is Nigeria, rather than choosing to explain itself abroad, should have chosen to rebuild lives at home. And this would have mattered. Please just click on that subscribe button and make sure that you like our video so that YouTube will recommend our video to other people. My name is Rimamnde Shawulu. This is The Other Side.